Yeah.
It's personal story time.
There's a special place in hell for people who deny Die Hard and pedophiles. So, just saying.
Who deny pedophiles?
No, deny Die Hard.
What are you saying, Charles?
Are you saying Die Hard is filled with pedophiles?
I'm saying on the fly, being tired, I tried to take the line from Firefly, which there's a special place in hell for people who talk in movie theaters and pedophiles, and change it to people who deny that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. And that's not the point. Tell me about your first job.
Personal story time.
It's personal story time.
Did you know that it was personal story time, Charles? What
I
are we
asked
talking
you about your first job. That's in the story. Daddy, tell me a story about your first time. Joe, you're on.
Oh, wow. He got rid of everybody. That wasn't even me. I didn't touch it. So my first job, I guess, well, if you back up to when I was a kid, my first job was really mowing my neighbor's lawn, which it worked out well, but I'm surprised that he didn't get after me a few times for being late on mowing it or being an ignoramus or... Yeah, there were a few times where I did half the job and then my dad called me in for dinner or something else and then had to finish it later. Like, yeah, he was actually a super, super nice older guy who basically every time if he was home while I was mowing the lawn, he would bring me out a Sprite, and so I'd drink the Sprite and keep going.
I can't need a whistle, but well,
No,
you sure look sweaty over there, Joe. You need to go get the Sprite.
nothing like that. I actually don't know like hardly anything about the man other than when he'd bring me out a Sprite. And when he'd pay me, I don't think I ever actually interacted with him.
So you're saying you blocked it out?
He did know it puts the lotion on the skin, but I know he hasn't seen the movie. So,
but my first job as a teenager was at a Burger King that I worked at for 2 or 3 years. They were actually considering making me a manager at one point, but then I moved, so that didn't exactly happen. But I like in the system, I knew half the manager's codes because they trusted me to empty the till, count the money, and do half their jobs for them.
I don't trust you to count the money. That's now.
But no, yeah, so I worked there. And then my sister worked there as well, and her baby daddy worked there as well, and aka her first husband. But yeah, it was a good job. It was a job. So I did my senior year of high school. I only went to school half time because I got work release permission. So I went to school in the morning and then went and worked 8 hours at Burger King after that. And so, yeah.
Things guess if this is prison versus school. Work release.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
You spend 8 hours in a 10 by 10 concrete block room with 30 minutes outside in the yard. Yeah, check both.
Yep.
You got people yelling at you to move from one place to the other, and you eat when you're told. It's both. Yep. Sorry. So Kurt, do you remember your first job?
I do. So you have to understand that I grew up in a little town that consisted of farmlands, and the rules are different with family farms.
Oh yeah. You start working at 10 or yeah.
My first job, I was 9 or 10, picking green beans at the local farm, and they would pay us 5 cents a pound, but you had to fill at least a bushel.
And how many pounds are in a bushel? 16? I want to say. I
was going to say I don't remember, but like 16 to 20, somewhere in there. I think.
I remember the randomest crap.
Yeah. So yeah, so that was, and I worked on the farm
Wait,
from
they're paying you a nickel a pound.
yeah. So
Is this in the Dust Bowl? I
this
mean,
was
that is
no, and it
horrible.
was in the late 70s, early 80s.
So for a bushel, you get less than $1. If it's 16 pounds times
Could be.
0.05
It could
is
be.
So I googled it. A bushel of potatoes is 60 pounds.
60.
So,
Okay.
so that's a bushel of potatoes. So maybe it is 60 pounds for a bushel of beans, because I don't know.
That's $3. 60
Yeah,
pounds. He
But
got $3.
so here's a couple of things to understand.
Okay.
One, as a kid, your concept of time is very different,
True.
right? So two, if I could fill 2 bushels in a day, that's $6 for a 9 or 10-year-old.
Okay, and for economics, what was something comparable like a candy bar or gas prices or movies?
So yeah, so
Or minimum wage.
Yeah, so minimum.
Yeah.
I don't know what minimum wage was back then, but I will tell you when I did know, it was $3 an hour. So that was a few years later, so it had to be less than that.
Probably.
But also, like, you could go to the store and get candy and whatnot for 25, 50 cents, pretty straight up. Because what I would also do is I would go to the store, buy a bunch of candy, bring it to school, and resell it at a profit to my classmates.
That's the first real job right
Yep.
there.
Yeah, and I would take orders after a while. So because I lived close enough to walk to the store. So that was like, but everybody in my town, we would all work for one of the farms, because there were 3 or 4 farms in town. You would work at one of them, and I worked at the farm for like 4 or 5 years. Even
tracks.
yeah, because you worked your way up to an hourly wage, really. But then like during high school, I had all kinds of jobs. Like I did a tour at Burger King, but I ended up closing most nights, so it was terrible. And I didn't have a license, so my parents picked me up at 2:00 in the morning the nights that I worked. Yeah. I worked a couple of different clothing retail stores, but in the summer, that all changed. In the summer, I worked 2 years for the telephone company, working in manholes, splicing cable at probably twice the minimum wage plus overtime, because it was a union job. So I made a good amount of money there. Manholes, sitting down inside the manholes and doing the
We
job.
should have named this show Manholes.
Yeah.
That would have suited.
The inside the manholes are way drier and cooler than you might think. So it was awesome during the summer.
All right.
And the other summer job that I had was I worked at a local amusement park as a wandering musician. So I played a saxophone in a band that strolled all around the amusement park, and we played for people.
Buskin, right? That's what it's called, buskers.
Yeah, except we were paid per hour by the amusement park, and we would just go around entertaining people. That was like one of the coolest jobs ever. But yeah, I worked a whole bunch of different companies and different jobs just over the years. So what about you,
Roll
Charles?
that dice.
Joe,
Wait,
I
what
get to tell
about
my
you?
story. Joe, I know you didn't remember me being gone last week. You thought Bob was me the whole time, but come on, let me tell my story.
What a jerk.
Get Kelsey going. At least she listens. So
Wait.
similar. So,
Am I the butt face?
yes, you are, Joe. So similar, Joe. Well, okay, growing up in the church, there's always things I needed to do. I had to do. I learned skills, but I didn't get paid for them, type of deal. But around 10 or so, started mowing lawns. $8 for just the front, $10 for front and back. Which now I was like, $2 more to double the work. And actually, in the area I grew up in, front yards were shorter than backyards. So yeah, that was my mom's doing. My first W-2 job was a grocery store. Local. I mean, it was a chain, as in they had 6 or 7 stores locally. Hated it. It was the worst. It was the worst. Unjokingly, racist white guys. Looking back and seeing how something, it had your stereotypical token almost older black gentleman who's been working there for years, but he's still just putting out cans and labeling them. No room for management, moving up, making sex. They were making sex. It was not fun. It was all right though. I learned a few things. That's where I learned how to drive a stick shift. I mean, I was 16, it was, I hated everything, but I was there because it's homeschooled. I could work during the daytime. So I didn't have to put up with a lot of the standard teenage crap. And I've done the Long John Silvers and the Taco Bells and the Chick-fil-A's, and you've gone through a whole bunch of different things. So one of the personal story times, Joe, should be, what's our weirdest job ever that we did? But yeah, I mean, honestly, never worked for Burger King. I wasn't gonna do that. I didn't work for McDonald's either, because I'll eat Taco Bell and Chick-fil-A. That's which maybe should have been opposite, because that Long John Silvers, I won't eat Long John Silvers. So I worked there for a while, but I still so maybe I should have worked at Burger King. Do you guys eat Burger King now?
Sometimes.
I don't. I don't, but but I'm not eating a whole lot of fast food now anyway.
Ah, wow.
So, but if I was going to, Burger King might have been number 4 or 5 on my list. I mean,
I'm not a big burger guy, so when I go for burgers, I go for the more pricier ones, like Five Guys.
Yeah.
Or something like Cookout, where it's definitively tastes different to me.
Still haven't hit a Cookout. I keep seeing
We'll
them.
try to knock one out while you're, depending on your Dragon Con schedule.
Yeah.
That's that kind of thing. So all right,
This is the
Roll
first time
that
I've ever
dice.
heard of Cookout.
God, they're all over the place on
because
the road.
you go to Cracker Barrel. You are too white for Cookout. You're not invited.
I haven't gone to Cracker Barrel in over 15 years.
Cookout.
Jerk face.